Recently, I made some homebrew magic items for my party, so I figured I'd share them with you for you to use in your own D&D games. This is a Dragonscale Shield, a metal shield with a single dragon scale embedded into it, perfect for your party's resident dragon slayer. It comes in two versions, lesser and greater. Both versions give the user advantage on saving throws against any dragon's breath weapon or its frightening presence feature while attuned. A lesser Dragonscale Shield also gives the user resistance to a damage type based on the type of dragon scale embedded into it. This one here has a gold dragon scale, and because gold dragons breathe fire, it gives resistance to fire damage. If they have another dragon scale, the user can take 10 minutes to swap the shield's current scale for the other one. This lets them change what resistance the shield gives, and gives them a use for all those dragon scales the party probably insists on collecting. A greater Dragonscale Shield gives immunity to the damage instead of resistance, and is a +1 shield. Lesser shields are uncommon magic items, and greaters are very rare. I hope you guys like this one. Stay tuned for more parts with more items. This is part 2 of magic items I've made for my D&D players. I call these the Boots of Steadiness. They activate when you're targeted by some effect that would force you to move from your current space, like a shove, a gust of wind spell, or a warlock's repelling blast invocation. If you fail your saving throw, or you never got to make a save at all, you can use your reaction to stay in your current spot. You still suffer any other effects of failing the save. For example, if it was a thunder wave, you'll still take full damage, but you won't be knocked back 10 feet. On a successful save, you can use your reaction to move up to half your speed in any direction you choose. If your enemy's trying to push you away, get right up in their face. If it's impossible for you to stay in your current space, for example, if a giant pillar of stone shoots out from the ground underneath where you're standing, you can use your reaction to choose exactly which space within 5 feet of the now occupied area you end up in. Optional rule if you want a Zelda reference. While wearing these boots, you sink like a rock and have to walk along the bottom of any body of water you enter. Walking through water like this counts as difficult terrain. Hope you like it. More parts coming soon. Part 3 of magic items I've made for my players, the Pocket Tree. This uncommon wondrous item is a miniature tree inside of a small glass orb. If you bury the orb in soil, a full-size version of the tree inside it will sprout up after 10 minutes. When the tree is out, the orb will be lodged in the trunk. You can spend 1 minute removing it to make the tree shrink back down and return to the orb. You can't plant the orb again for another 8 hours. Any inanimate object you attach to the tree will grow and shrink with it. For example, if you put a swing on one of the branches, the swing will shrink down into the orb when the tree is miniaturized and come back out in the same place when the tree is released. Building a tree house in the Pocket Tree is a fun way for your party to have a mobile base. There's only one tree, though. It has an AC of 15, 30 hit points, and immunity to psychic damage. If the tree dies, the orb shatters and the magic fades. It regains its hit points after 8 hours in the orb. If the orb is broken while the tree is inside of it, all objects attached to the tree will harmlessly fly out of the orb into nearby spaces. What would your party do with a pocket tree? Magic items I've made for my D&D party, Part 4, Mountainheart Weapons. These uncommon magic weapons are carved from blocks of stone found deep in the cores of mountains. Mountainheart weapons can be found in a lot of forms, any weapon without the light property, but I've decided to draw a warhammer. I think you're going to be able to guess why. Mountainheart weapons are exceptionally heavy. It takes a DC 16 strength check to even pick one up and move it for a round. However, if you're attuned to it, it feels as light and easy to lift as any ordinary weapon of its kind. A Mountainheart weapon always has the thrown property, with a normal range of 10 feet and a long range of 20 feet. If you throw the weapon and it hits a medium or smaller creature, in addition to its normal damage, the target must make a DC 16 strength save or be knocked prone and pinned down by the weight of the weapon. A pinned creature is restrained. The target can use its action to try and get out from under the weapon by remaking its strength save. Otherwise, it's pinned until someone gets the weapon off of it. I'd love hearing all your creative ideas for how to use my items, so what would your character do with a ridiculously heavy weapon like this? Magic items I've made for my D&D players, Part 5, the Ring of Generosity. This ring is the perfect item for your party's support caster. It can hold up to 6 charges and starts with none. While you're attuned to it, every time you cast a non-damaging spell of 1st level or higher on a willing creature that is not yourself, the ring gets a number of charges equal to the level of spell you cast. For example, if you cast a 3rd level spell on an ally, you would get 3 charges. Healing spells like Cure Wounds or buff spells like Shield of Faith will usually get you charges, as long as you don't cast them on yourself. If the spell can target multiple creatures like Bless, you can target yourself and still get a charge, as long as you're spreading the love to your allies too. If any creature you target is unwilling, you don't get any charges. As a bonus action, you can expend charges from the ring to regain expended spell slots. 2 charges gives you a 1st level spell slot back, and 3 charges gets you a 2nd level spell slot back. The ring is sort of like a rewards program for using your spell slots selflessly. Let me know who in your party would get the most use out of this ring, or who could use the extra incentive to give the party some healing. Here's a D&D magic item, the Bracelet of Vanity. While attuned, the bracelet makes you look like the most physically beautiful version of yourself, giving you advantage on persuasion and performance checks. With it, you can cast Disguise Self at will, but your disguise will always have enhanced beauty. If you try to mimic a specific person, creatures who have seen the real person before will have advantage on checks to notice something's off about you. The bracelet also comes with additional spells, 1 cast each of Charm Person, Enthrall, and Suggestion. They recharge at dawn. And that's it. Hope you like it. Yeah, I'm kidding. That's not it. This item is cursed. It may make the one who wears it beautiful, but it curses them to only see ugliness in others. Whenever you succeed on an insight check, you'll interpret the other person as having malicious intent, even if that's not true. Beating a 20 on insight may make you realize that this suspicion is not your own, but you still can't see the truth about the other person. If you ever try to take off the bracelet, it will latch onto you with thorns, lose all previous benefits, and inflict the flesh rot disease from the contagion spell onto you until you remove the bracelet, which takes a remove curse spell or similar. Do you think your players would fall for this item and its curse? Here's a D&D magic item, the Haunted Skull. This one was inspired by Michael K's bard Corellon, who does a lot of talking with spirits. The purpose of the Haunted Skull is to house a spirit and give it some kind of physical form. It may or may not have a spirit already in it when you find it. If you have a body part of a humanoid that's been dead for less than a year, or the soul of any dead humanoid no matter how old, you can do a 10-minute ritual to put them inside of the skull if it's empty. If you only have a body part, the creature has to be willing, but if you have their soul with you, like in a soul cage or as a ghost, an unwilling creature can make a DC 13 charisma save to avoid being trapped in the skull. Once possessed, the Haunted Skull becomes a CR 1/8 floating skull creature. Stat block for this can be found in my Google Drive, link in my bio. The spirit has full control of the skull and is under no obligation to follow your orders. You can do another 10-minute ritual to remove the spirit from the skull as long as it's either willing or incapacitated. But each time you do, there's a 1 in 4 chance that the item will break and become unusable. Killing the floating skull creature also breaks the item. Who would your party bring back with this item? Happy Halloween! Here's a legendary magic item for D&D, the Quill of Democracy. Its core benefit is simple. If you're attuned, it gives you 1 free cast of the Wish spell, but you can't attune it or unattune it normally. Once you cast Wish with it, it stays attuned to you, but doesn't count against your attunement slots, and it can't be unattuned. At some random point, anywhere from an hour to a year later, the Quill will call for an election to see who gets to attune to it next. It will only do this when there are at least 7 conscious, intelligent creatures within 60 feet. The Quill activates on Initiative 30. Intelligent creatures within 60 feet can use their action on their turn to enroll as a candidate. There's a max of 3 candidates, first come, first serve. When it hits the Quill's turn again, time stops and every creature within range freezes but can still talk. Each candidate has 10 minutes to make their case for why they should be the one to make a wish with the Quill. Other creatures are free to ask questions, but rival candidates can't talk when it's not their turn. Once that's done, each creature can privately vote. Any who do vote get the benefits of a Hero's Feast spell for 8 hours. Then, the votes are counted and the Quill immediately attunes to the winner. If you haven't already, remember to get out and vote. Here's a magic item for D&D, the Potion of Fungus Flesh. As the name implies, drinking this rare potion makes your body tacky and spongy like a mushroom. For the duration, you gain resistance to poison damage and immunity to the poisoned condition. Whenever a creature hits you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction to have the wound explode with poisonous spores. The attacking creature has to make a Constitution saving throw. The DC is equal to the damage of the attack dealt, a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 18. A creature takes 3d6 poison damage on a failed save and half on a success. On a failed, it's also poisoned, but can repeat the save at the end of each turn after this one to recover from that. If the creature fails its initial save by more than 10, it's paralyzed instead of poisoned. But taking this potion is risky. Every 10 minutes, you have to make a DC 13 Constitution save. After 3 successes, the potion wears off and you go back to normal. But on each failure, you become more mushroom-like. After 3 failures, you turn into a mushroom completely, taking the petrified condition until something removes the effect. It counts as 5th level magic for Dispel Magic. Would your character risk drinking it? According to Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, some elves have a blessing from the god Corellon, which allows them to change their sex during a long rest. This uncommon magic tattoo extends its ability to everyone. A creature attuned to this tattoo can choose between 3 forms on a long rest: masculine, feminine, and mixed. The form will morph your primary and secondary sex characteristics, including your skeletal structure, body hair, voice, and so on, until you use it again. The masculine and feminine forms will morph you in a way that lines up with a typical cisgender specimen of your species. With mixed, you can choose which parts of yourself to masculinize, which to feminize, and which to make more neutral and ambiguous. Note that this only makes you look like a different version of yourself, not a completely different person. The tattoo doesn't automatically change your hair to match gender norms, but if you change your hairstyle in one form, that new style will only apply to that form. So if you cut your hair short and masculine, it can still be long and feminine. If you unattune or the magic is dispelled, you'll stay in whichever form you were in last, but you can't change again until you get the magic back. I hope this is useful for trans and non-binary PCs who want something more reliable than Alter Self, but less extreme than True Polymorph. Here's some magical safety gear that's perfect for your spellcaster who likes to experiment. The first is Arcane Safety Goggles. While you're attuned to this uncommon item, you automatically succeed on all saves against area of effect spells that you cast. And if you would take half damage on a success, you take no damage. It's like the Evocation Wizard Sculpt spell, but only for yourself. The second is Anti-Magic Gloves. If you handle a magic item, trap, or anything else enchanted while using the gloves, any magic effect that would be triggered by someone touching it doesn't activate. For example, touching something under the alarm spell wouldn't trigger the alarm. Note that this only works if you're touching the magical thing with only the gloves. Wearing them won't protect you if you, for example, step on a magic trap. The level of magic they can protect you from depends on the rarity of the gloves. Common gloves only block first level spells and up to uncommon magic items, while legendary gloves can block everything, even 9th level spells and artifacts. While wearing the gloves, you can't attune to new items, you can't cast spells that require somatic components unless they're of the abjuration school, and you can't use magic items that require using your hands with them, like magic weapons. The gloves don't require attunement themselves, but donning or doffing them is an action. Remember, when you're messing with suspicious magic items, safety first. Today's D&D magic item is the Amulet of the Harvest God. This uncommon divine focus requires attunement by a cleric, druid, or paladin. It adds 3 spells to your list of prepared spells: Goodberry, Create Food and Water, and Hero's Feast. These don't count against your number of prepared spells for the day. Also, when you use this focus, it makes those 3 spells work a little differently. When you cast Goodberry, the amulet improves the berry's healing power. Instead of just 1 hit point, the healing each berry gives the creature that eats it increases to 1 plus your wisdom modifier, a minimum of 2 hit points. When you cast Create Food and Water, the amount of food and water you can make doubles. You can also choose what the food looks like and exactly how it tastes. No more bland but nourishing cleric food. When you cast Hero's Feast, you don't need the golden bowl as a material component. Instead, you can give an offering of incense and holy water worth 100 gold pieces to the amulet as the material component. That's 1/10 of the usual price. I hope this helps some mom-friend clerics give their parties some nice, nourishing meals. Today's magic item is the Bag of Pet Holding. This pouch has a demiplane inside of it that only beasts can enter. As an action, you can put a friendly, willing beast into the bag, or take out a beast that is currently in the bag. The demiplane inside of the bag has everything an animal could need: food, water, a comfortable environment, and entertainment. If the bag is destroyed, all beasts inside of it scatter unharmed into unoccupied spaces nearby. Bags of pet holding come in different sizes, and their capacity is represented by pet slots. A tiny beast takes 1 slot, a small one takes 2, a medium one takes 4, and a large beast takes 8 slots. A bag could have anywhere from 2 to 16 slots, but they're usually in the 4 to 8 range. If a friendly beast that has spent at least 8 hours in the bag is reduced to 0 hit points and you can see it, you can use your reaction to teleport it into the bag before it takes the damage. You can do this once per animal per day. If your party finds a bag of pet holding in a dungeon or loot pile, it might have a pet or 2 already inside of it. What kind of critters would your character carry around in this bag? Today's D&D magic item is Fey Chocolate Coins. These delicious sweets are infused with fairy magic. Each coin holds 1 spell in it of the DM's choosing that requires concentration. Some good examples are Heroism, Fairy Fire, Blur, Hold Person, Fly, or Haste. When you eat the coin as an action, you can cast a spell associated with the coin at its lowest level. The spell has a +3 spellcasting ability, +5 to hit, and a save DC of 13. You can't eat another Fey Chocolate Coin until that spell ends. However, you're not the one who concentrates on the spell. Instead, a random Fey creature in the Feywild far away from you is assigned the task. Its bonus to concentration checks is equal to 1d6 minus the level of the spell. Because Fey are easily distracted, the Fey creature will have to make a DC 10 concentration check at the end of each of your turns, except for the first turn, to maintain the spell. What spell would you want on a coin? Thanks for 15k, guys.